Hi, my name is Paulina, and today I want to talk about nutrition and rugby. Session objectives, nutrition in sports, macronutrients and the role in the body, pre, during, and post-game nutrition and hydration, recovery foods, personalized nutrition and hydration, and an extra, which will be effect of alcohol consumption on the body. So now I want you to have a look on the question. Pause and try to answer it. Why do you think nutrition in sport is different to general guidance on nutrition? So if you are back and with the answer like, maybe because someone who is physically active burns more calories and therefore need more food, well, that answer is probably right. But now let's have a look at the study. In 1997, the group of scientists, Dr. Trapper and colleagues, were trying to estimate an average energy expenditure in competitive swimmers who were training for 5 to 6 hours in a day at the intensity of 70 up to 150% of maximal oxygen consumption, covering the distance of 17.5 plus minus 1 kilometer in a day. So the result of this study has shown that an average person was burning about 5,593 calories in a day, plus minus approximately 500 calories. In terms of food, well, 500 calories is an average bowl of curry with rice. So when we think about volume for such person, we need to multiply this curry rice times 10 to meet this demand. And in some cases, when some swimmers burn 6,000 calories, you need to eat equivalent of 12 bowls of curry rice, which is a massive volume-wise quantity of food. Let's talk about energy expenditure in sports. Well, there is a concept known as CICO, which stands for calories in, calories out. And when we've got perfect balance between calories in and calories out, we don't observe any weight fluctuations. However, when this balance is disturbed and we consume more than we expend, then we're gonna observe the weight gain. And if we spend more to what we eat, we will experience weight loss. So in terms of sports, we need to think about the body composition to be within the range for our sport. And also in terms of performance, we need to think about the number of calories needed to consume in order to be able to perform at certain levels. When we look at the chart, we can see on the x-axis the exercise intensity expressed in maximal oxygen consumption, and on the y-axis we can see the expenditure of energy expressed in kilojoules per minute. And this chart clearly shows us that the energy expenditure increases with increasing exhaustion or intensity. So the more intense the training is, the more calories will be burned. And it also shows us the oxidation of different nutrients, namely fat and carbohydrates, and how is it oxidized at different intensities. Let's have a look at this table, which present us with the major nutrients classified into three categories as macronutrients, micronutrients, and water, where macronutrients are divided into carbohydrates, protein, and fat, and micronutrients into vitamins and minerals. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the macronutrients, as they are more dense in energy. So they are divided in three categories accordingly to the structure. We can differentiate between carbohydrates, which 1 gram will yield about 4 calories, and which are also the major source of energy and aiding good health as well as immune function. Then we've got protein, where similarly to carbohydrates, 1 gram of protein will yield about 4 calories. And they are important in terms of structural and mechanical function, as well as the process regulation in our body, as well as in a cell. They are also an emergency source of energy. And the last category, which are fats, where 1 gram of fat will yield 9 calories, which tells us that this is the most energy dense macronutrient. And its function includes the structure of the cell, as well as the function, body organs protection, temperature regulation. And as I said before, it is concentrated energy source. First, we want to look at the picture, and this picture shows us the major source of carbohydrates in our diet. So we can see the grains and its products like breads and pasta. And we also can see vegetables and fruit. And I hope you knew already where to source your carbohydrates from, but this is just a little aid. Well, essentially, we told already that sports nutrition will differ from general population guidance in terms of energy expenditure and needs for certain nutrients. And in this case, I want to present you with the table from the study of Mr. Burke and colleagues from 2011, which shows you how you can adjust the intake and what you should take into account when you want to do it. So the first compartment shows us the intensity level. So if you know that your weekly schedule will change from light intensity or light training 3 times a week to moderate or high, then you can use this guidance to plan your nutrition and carbohydrate intake ahead in order to keep yourself in the best possible way for performance. So now we want to look at moderate exercise program, approximately 1 hour a day. And then we can see that the target of carbohydrate intake can be increased from 5 to 7 grams times body mass kilogram per day. So the third compartment shows us in terms of high intensity when you want to add some endurance program or more intense exercises from 1 to 3 hours a day, you can further increase the intake of carbohydrates from 6 to 10 grams per body weight per day. And this table is excellent example which will explain the carbohydrate intake recommended for each intensity for the particular body weight. As we can see from this table, let's say you are, for example, weighing 60 kilograms and you want to increase, for example, from very light intensity exercise to moderate, your intake will increase, recommended intake will increase from 180 grams per day to 300. And this is the way we should really consider our ahead planning nutrition and personalized nutrition in terms of exercise. Okay, let's talk about protein, its sources, and the quality. We know already that protein can come from animal and non-animal sources, and in terms of animal sources, we need to think about eggs, dairy products, and meat. And in terms of non-animal or plant sources, we need to think about the beans and pulses. The question is, how do we evaluate the quality of protein? And how do we assess what product should we consume in order to benefit from it the most? Protein consists of amino acids, and we know that we've got non-essential amino acids which our body can produce, and essential amino acids which we have to provide with our food. So we all probably have already seen the abbreviations on some sports supplements like EAA or BCAA, which stands for essential amino acids or branched chain amino acids. Essential amino acids are histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, and valine. I want here to talk about leucine specifically because it participates in muscle protein synthesis, and therefore, in terms of physical performance, it can enhance your recovery processes as well as aid you progressing in terms of performance. And as we can see here, we've got some concentrated powders from milk. We've got casein concentrated powder, we've got milk protein, and we've got whey protein measured against pea protein, for example. And leucine content, as we can see, is the highest in whey protein concentrated powder, which means that this is probably the most bioavailable protein, as it's gonna be synthesized much quicker, the one from whey, in comparison to other products. People actively participating in sports have increased need on protein consumption in comparison to less active individuals. We cannot store protein in our bodies. Therefore, we should consume them regularly throughout the day in order to aid the process of recovery and muscle protein synthesis. And the figure below shows us that post-training, our protein synthesis is increased in comparison to a normal day, and we should use this time to provide our bodies with the adequate amount of protein in order to recover and aid our sport performance. Have a look on this slide, which will show us different products, the protein content, serving size, and calorie content. Why is this important? I want you to know what you eat and how much you need in order to provide yourself with the adequate amount of protein. So, as we know, athletes follow the periodization throughout the year in order to meet the expectations of the coaches and reach the goals that they train towards. So, the goal will change during different times. For example, someone in the middle of the season would love to maintain the fat levels, body fat levels, very low, as it might aid the performance, and therefore they would love to consume as much as they approximately burn. So in this case, they might go for less calorific products, or just choose the more calorific products for the training days or game days. And when some people have different goals, when the goal is changing, like in terms of building muscles or developing strength, then the dietary needs might change, and they might think of more calorific foods in order to obtain and develop the mass that will satisfy them and the coaches and trainers in terms of strength and hypertrophy. Let's talk a little bit about fats. Fats, known as lipids, can be divided into three categories. We know that some are saturated, and these saturated fats can be found in animal fats as well as non-animal sources like coconut oil and palm oil, um, which are solid in the room temperature, and this is the way to kind of recognize it. We've got also monounsaturated fats known as MUFA, present in olives, olive oil, avocado, sesame seed oil, and peanut oil, as well as we also have polyunsaturated fatty acids known as PUFA, and also known as essential fatty acids, and similarly like with the protein, essential amino acids which have to be provided with the food. And here we want to find them essential fatty acids in sunflower seeds, walnut, and oily fish. Fats are important for our bodies as it helps to maintain the vascular health, the cell membrane integrity, and fat soluble vitamins delivery and maintenance and storage. And we should consume about 20 to 35% of our total energy from fat. Um, the type of fat ingested is very likely to determine the effects it will produce in our bodies. And for example, saturated fatty acids consumed in excess are linked to the obesity and cardiovascular problems development. So it is good to have a look not only um, at the proper amount of fat, but also at the ratio between the sort of fat we consume throughout the day. Hence, it might be worth to include some more sources of poly and monounsaturated fatty acids and start focusing on adding some olive oil to the certain foods meals, and maybe reduce the intake of saturated fats. Want to talk a little bit more about healthy fats. In general, healthy fats should not be restricted in athletes. And again, depending on what your goal is, if you want to maintain the improved body composition, like low body fat levels, you should really think of including the essential fats in your diet on regular basis. And here we have the sources of EPA or DHA, like fatty fish such as mackerel and herring. Um, Also, the food items including flaxseed oil or walnut oil, which are high in plant derivative omega-3 fatty acids like alpha linoleic acid. They are not very often consumed. However, you can change it and you can reach for the products like oils, walnut oil, cold pressed, and start adding it to your salad and consume it on the daily basis. Also, polyunsaturated fatty acids shown the effect on body composition. And when we think about the consumption of omega-3 fatty acids, well, it results in improved performance, enhanced recovery, and also reduced risk of illness and injury. And now let's talk a little bit about pre-game nutrition, what we should eat before the game. Well, essentially, about 2 to 3 hours before the game, we should eat something that we know that is high in carbohydrates, contains some protein, and is relatively easily digestible and low in fat. So in terms of carbohydrates, we can eat pasta with vegetables and some sort of white meat like chicken, turkey, or fish, which is very bioavailable, and it's going straight into our bodies, can be easily converted. The carbohydrates can be easily converted into energy. We also can see that there is a potato mash, which could be eaten also with some fish or broccoli, as well as we have some pancakes with fruit, which usually should not be advised to athletes. However, before the game, they are quite a good option and you can reach for them. In terms of protein, scrambled eggs, as well as low-fat yogurts and cheeses and spreads should be okay. What not to do before the game is not try to discover new products or new foods. Do not try something you don't know, because it may negatively affect your body. So the more followed the routine for you in terms of pre-game nutrition, the better. A high glycemic index, carbohydrates, rather than lower, in order to provide you with instant energy. A lot of veg with vitamins and minerals. And if you want some more presentation, you can use the link below, which is the Minster Rugby's pre-match nutrition insight, where the top nutritionist will present you with different foods available for the players before game. Already from previous slide, that muscle protein synthesis is higher post exhaustive exercise. The game is obviously exhaustive exercise, so the recovery starts in the locker room, where the congestion of protein and carbohydrates as soon as possible after the match shows to improve acceleration of protein synthesis. So the consumption of whey protein shake and, for example, some isotonic drink should be the good way in order to aid the recovery process. And after approximately 2 hours, we should reach for a fully balanced meal, which means the meal that contains the proper amount of carbohydrates, protein, and fats. And here you've got two balanced meals. You've got the curry with chicken, as well as on the other side you've got the pasta with vegetable and meat. A little extension to the full presentation on foods. Well, let's talk about alcohol a little bit, because it also provides us with calories. So now you want to look at the question um, asked here: why do you think people drink? And pause for a minute and think about it. Well, if you came up with the answers like people drink to have a good time or because they are together and want to have a good time, well, yeah, you're probably right. And we also see a lot of alcohol being consumed and sold during the sport events. Know whether promotion of alcohol and selling it during the sports event is appropriate. However, I don't want to be too judgmental, and let's look at alcohol from the chemical perspective and its effects on the body. So alcohol, also known as ethanol, is a clear, colorless, and highly flammable liquid. It has a bactericidal activity and also is used as topical disinfectant, which we could see during the COVID as the measures, COVID measures, where we could have that disinfectant on our hands, which smelled sometimes like an alcohol because it was the major ingredient in it. So death from ethanol is possible, which is very sad, when its level reaches 4%, and a blood level of 5% or more is commonly fatal. So in the year 2016, we had estimated 2.8 million of deaths from the alcohol consumption. We all probably know the alcohol effect on the body. The alcohol intoxication would produce the loss of coordination, poor judgment, slower reflexes, disordered vision, loss of memory and blackouts, increased blood pressure and heart rate, as well as sad speech. And this is how we can recognize whether someone had a drink, and sometimes they also appear very confused or aggressive. Let's have a look on this table. This will show us the average calorie content in the unit of alcohol. So standard glass of wine of 12%, yeah, alcohol volume 12%, will contain about 158 calories. Well, when we think about it, 1 gram of alcohol is approximately 7 calories. So, is alcohol causing obesity? Well, yes, it can, because um, the mixed cocktails that we drink are also high in sugar. So you provide your body with um, the energy that you're not very likely to burn off. So it creates the excess of calories, and the excess of calories effect is known as weight gain. We drink alcohol, it also will produce the effect of our gastrointestinal tract. So let's talk about it. As we drink, our alcohol enters the bloodstream through the stomach and proximal small intestine, and from there it is distributed throughout the body. First, it will arrive to the portal vein, which is drained directly into the liver, where the most of alcohol is being eliminated. Another 2 to 5% is exerted unchanged in urine, sweat, and breath. Alcohol produces negative impact on our gastrointestinal tract, and this is expressed as lowered epithelial integrity, decreased good microbiome, vitamins, folates levels are lower, as well as calcium, magnesium, phosphate, iron, and trace elements levels are much lower. And well, epithelial integrity, what is it? The cells within our intestines are very tightly linked together. So this layer is semi permeable, so it should um, pass some sort of molecules into the bloodstream, like when we need our nutrients, they are absorbed from the intestine, and they can pass through that layer and be diffused into the bloodstream. However, in this is happening when the process is not being affected negatively by alcohol. In case of alcohol or increased alcohol consumption, the tight junctions or in the between cells can loosen a little bit, allowing toxic substances entering the bloodstream, which might be very dangerous, not only on the side producing the intoxication or infection, but also for all other bodily systems, as the bacteria that remain in blood or in the not eliminated can even be transported to the brain. And in terms of a good microbiome, we know that alcohol is having that bactericidal properties. This is how it negatively impacts the ratio of microorganisms that live and support our digestive system. And in this case, we talk about alcohol-induced dysbiosis, which will contribute to the development of acute and chronic liver diseases through its pathological effect on the gut integrity. Talk about alcohol metabolism. So we know that ethanol can be converted into acetaldehyde and then into acetic acid through the effect of different enzymes on it. And we know that acetaldehyde is more toxic than ethanol, and therefore it's linked to the clinical effects like increased risk of liver disease, multiple forms of cancers, and development of alcoholism. As the alcohol is being converted continuously to reach the point where it can be converted into acetyl-CoA and enter the citric acid cycle in the cell mitochondria. Its metabolism looks pretty like the metabolism of the glucose. And also there are some things and facts to learn about the difference between just hangover and alcohol poisoning, as the poisoning can produce the real threat to one's life, and therefore is important to be able to differentiate between them both. So hangover, we know that hangover is associated with headaches and sensitivity to light, irritability, decreased attention, nausea, tiredness, weakness, and muscle pains. While in terms of alcohol poisoning, We've got to think about potential seizures, confusion, continuous vomiting, difficulty breathing, increased heart rate, low body temperature and chills, and cyanotic blue tinged skin around lips, nail beds, etc. So what to do if you notice that someone might be poisoned and having seizures or is confused, or you just simply see that this person state is more likely to produce serious threat to their life, you need to call 999, um, and you need to stay with them as well as sit them up and look after. So eventually put them in the recovery position so they don't choke themselves in when they will potentially vomiting. So you need to give them water to sip if they are able to swallow, and keep them warm with a jacket or blanket. Don't leave them alone. Don't let them drink more alcohol. Don't give them any caffeine drinks because it can dehydrate them even more. And don't put them in the cold shower or bath, and don't try to induce the vomit. Telling that someone has alcohol problem might be a tricky task, because a lot of people don't want to admit it, and if they know they have the problem, they might try to hide it from the public sight, so nobody is being concerned about them. When we look at this poster, it shows us that we should not consume more than 14 units per week, and we should have minimum 2 of alcohol-free days in a week. However, it also shows that there is no complete safe limit of drinking. Well, I would be concerned about myself if my week would have more drinking days than non-drinking days, and this is a good thing to think of. I'm not drinking. I cannot drink. I'm not drinking because I cannot handle alcohol very well, and I'm getting poisoned very easily and quickly. And as soon as I drink a little bit of beer or cider, I develop a horrendous headache. Why is it so? I've got no idea. It wasn't like this before. Let's talk about the negative effects from alcohol. Well, we can divide it into behavioral problems, health problems, and social problems. And the behaviors that kind of signpost us with the red flag regarding alcohol consumption include aggression, making bad decisions, um, accidents, depressive disorders, anxiety, or often blackouts and memory losses. In terms of health, and the red flag includes heart racing, ulcers, high blood pressure, trembling hands, and liver problems. And in terms of social life, we need to pay attention um, to the red flags like arguments and bad relationships, or toxic relationships, work, school problems, and regrets of things that the person has done. I want to dedicate this alcohol section to my friend Lucas, who sadly passed away uh, last year, because everybody ignored, or sort of ignored, his problem, including himself. He was a brilliant person and very good and skilled worker. He used to renovate the flats, and his eye to the detail was unbelievable. Very, very skilled young person who sadly passed away because he lost control on the units he was drinking that night, and he was found next day dead by his sister because he choked himself to death. And that's very, very sad story. I absolutely love this guy. He's great, and he will stay in my memory as the coolest guy I ever met. And I would not ever think that he would lead himself to such an awful end point. And therefore, guys, I think pay attention to people, pay attention to your relatives and friends, and be open about it. When you want to help someone, just come straight to them. Find out the charity or organization who, or maybe NHS, who will be willing to provide the further information in order to help them. Thank you very much, and this is our presentation about nutrition in rugby with extra for alcohol. You've got some references, you can use them for your work. I hope you have a lovely week. Thank you very much. Bye bye.